is the end of a three-part conversation. Sometimes I think ahead and try and break them down into three parts so it doesn't feel like Yom Kippur all together in one setting. So the first one was 2 weeks ago today. After the Boston bombing, we had a healing service, and I spoke about preferential love, and it's okay to pray for our loved ones. It's incumbent upon us to pray for our loved ones and take care of our loved ones, and then go out into the world and take care of other people. You can always listen to these online. The last week was a harsher conversation about justice after the Boston bombing and the Jewish and American views of tzedek tirdof, of pursuing justice. And today is really the final part of this three-part series, and it's really about blessings. And that's a hard thing to say in darkness when either individuals or a community have experienced darkness, in this case, not just any darkness, not just a tragedy, but atrocity, but evil after the Boston bombing. It's hard to talk about finding light amidst darkness, finding blessings amidst curses, finding hope when it seems like despair. But as hard as that is to do, in my opinion, that is the Jewish mission in a nutshell. Iyar vayiboker yom echad, right? To transform darkness with light, to transform life's tsuris, life's suffering with simcha, with joy. And that's what we need to do to redeem life's darkest moments, in my opinion. That's how we redeem it. That's how we make sense of it and carry on the message and the memories of our loved ones. The truth is there are many blessings after the Boston bombing, not necessarily blessings that we wanted to find out this way, but better than the alternative. Because in my experience, there's really two types of tragedy. There's tragedy. I mean, technically this wasn't tragedy, it was an atrocity, but we'll call it tragedy. There's tragedy, and then there was what I call tragedy compounded. Tragedy is when we lose a loved one. Tragedy is when we lose many loved ones. When a city, when a country is terrorized, that's tragedy, that's atrocity. But how we respond to that can be tragedy compounded. When a family is torn apart, not coming together after the loss of a loved one, that's tragedy compounded. When a community is torn apart after something like the Boston Marathon bombings, that could have been tragedy compounded. We could have seen all kinds of devastation on top of the devastation. We could have seen rioting. We could have seen looting. We could have seen people defying law enforcement, not staying in their homes, and it would have made it very difficult, maybe impossible, to pursue justice, last week's talk. We could have seen mosque burnings, which would have happened in other countries for sure if a minority group would have done something like that. I'm sure you would see burnings of synagogues or churches, maybe mosques. We could have seen violence against Muslims, or as ignorant as Americans are, against Sikhs, as we have seen in the past. We could have seen all kinds of tragedy compounded, but we didn't see that. We didn't see it really after 9/11. We didn't see it after the Aurora shootings and the Newtown, Connecticut, Sandy Hook shootings, and we didn't see it certainly after the Boston bombing a few weeks ago, and thank God for it. Thank God, because that's not what we do as Americans. That's not what we do as Jews. And it's in this week's Torah portion, which is both a Jewish and an American Parashat. Not all of them you can say as much, but this one most definitely. Because this one, in this week's Torah portion, there's a famous verse. So let's play your favorite game. Name that verse. Tell me where you find this. Ukaratem dror ba'aretz lekol yoshveha, yovel hi tihi elechem. Proclaim freedom throughout the land for all who live in thereof. Where do you find that? You find it, because you read my blog this week. Thanks, Joe. No, Joe probably knew that anyways. You find it on the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, right? Our forefathers very consciously chose a verse from Torah because they were grounded in the Hebrew Bible, and they chose this verse because it's obviously both a Jewish verse and it's an American verse. It's a universal verse. It's the great verse of the Western traditions, Western society. Freedom. Right? Liberty and freedom as an essential God-given, unalienable human right. Right? This is central to our tradition, especially in America, but it's a bit taken out of context. Our forefathers in America would have done well to read the entire Parsha and really add another verse in there. Because it's not just about freedom. If you look at this week's Torah portion, it's a double Torah portion. If you look at the first part of this week's Torah portion in Behar, you read not just about freedom. It's crouched among many verses about brotherhood. We might say sisterhood in this era. Brotherhood and sisterhood, right? The word ach, the word brother, is used over a dozen times before and after this verse. All kinds of acts of brotherhood. This week's portion talks about how if your brother is destitute and his hand falters beside you, you shall support him. It talks about lending your brother, your sister money, giving them food, a helping hand, giving them a chance, giving them a place in your gates by your side. Not just Jews. It talks about the ger, the convert, which is a Jew, but in their world wasn't a Jew, right? The outsider. It talks about the ger toshav, the people who are not Jewish, the resident aliens among us back then and now. We have a new kind of resident alien of people living from foreign lands with us. And so really it's an applicable teaching then and now that we have all kinds of people around us and among us, and we have to see each other as achim and as achot, as brothers and as sisters. And it says, v'chaye achecha imecha, right? And your brother, your sister shall live. Live fully, live completely when you reach out, when you take care of them, when you bring them in. Because liberty is not enough, right? Liberty alone, freedom on its own is not completely a Jewish value. Right? We would be well served to think of, Patrick Henry's, right, give me liberty or give me death. And we must fight for liberty, even at the expense of our lives. And many great men and women in this country and in Israel have given their lives so that we could have freedom and we could have liberty. But that's the point. They gave their lives to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Because liberty alone, individuality alone, without connection, without community, without country, without peoplehood is certainly not a Jewish value. If you think about what we're called as Jews, it's pretty remarkable. There's no reference to us in ancient history as Emunat Yisrael, as the believers, the believers of Israel, or Da'at Yisrael, the religion of Israel. What are we called all throughout Jewish history? Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel, Klal Yisrael, the entirety of Israel, Knesset Yisrael, the assembly of Israel, Beit Yisrael, the house of Israel, Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, brothers and sisters of Israel. We come from a tradition that says peoplehood is essential. It's even more important than the religious aspect, than what we think of as the religious aspect of our tradition. After all, we were a people before we were a religion. The peoplehood begins in Genesis. It's not until Exodus that we become a da'at, and we become a religion. I've been reading a book. It's taken me a while because I kind of get sidetracked with other books, as we all do. I've been reading a book called Imagine, John Lennon and the Jews, and I keep going back to it. It's by an Israeli named Ze'ev Magen. I'm not sure if he was born in this country, though he comes to America quite often. And in it, he talks about peoplehood and what it means to be a part of something bigger than yourselves. In this case, he's talking about Israel, and he's talking about Judaism and the idea of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh, that all Jews are responsible for one another. And he talks about how he was on leave from the IDF, from the Israeli army, and he was here in New York City visiting his brother, and they were rollerblading, somewhere in New York City, and they were speaking Hebrew, and a guy was sitting on a park bench and heard them speaking. And the guy just came up to them, and I get this all the time, A, because I look a little Israeli, and B, because I wear this out in public, so people think I'm Israeli. And they'll come up to me like they came up to him, and they'll say, as he did, shalom, right? Shalom, as I get at Starbucks every once in a while from somebody as he got in New York City. And what he says about that moment of shalom is pretty beautiful. He says, I looked up at this guy. He faltered, he gestured, he fumbled, he hesitated, and he stammered, shalom. I extended my hand, and he shook it warmly and smiled. Still flustered, he half saluted us as a goodbye and went back to merging and acquiring back on Wall Street. What he really wanted to say was, hey, I'm Jewish. What he really intended was, I embrace you, my brother, member of my tribe from a faraway place. We share something tremendous and indescribable, something ancient and exalted, something wonderful and mysterious. We were soldered together, you and I, by the fires of hell on earth, and our bonds are since unsunderable. I'm glad you are in the world, and it gives me strength and pleasure to see you here. Have some genuine affection. Shalom means that, and so much more. And he goes on to say to the reader of the book, because you see, dear reader, although you and I have never had the pleasure of meeting, and although you may harbor opinions and inclinations as different from mine as the sky is from the earth, and I'm assuming that Since you've read this far in the book, you're either Jewish or you have a lot of extra time on your hands. Although you are probably sitting there reading this over 7,000 miles away from where I am, sitting here writing it, we've still got something going, you and I, don't we? Oh, I admit, I can't know for absolute certain that this is requited from your side. But as for me, well, what I can say, I am smitten, head over heels, nuts. You are my family, and you mean everything in the entire world to me. I would lay down my life for you. Hell, I do lay down my life for you, and I don't even know who you are, my people, my family, my brother and sister. And that's what we Jews have done for thousands of years, and that's what many Jews among us continue to do. Right? I say with great pride that we are Am Yisrael, knowing full well that there is only an Am Yisrael because of our brave and righteous brothers and sisters in Israel, who put their lives on the line, who have sacrificed their lives every single day. We only have the modern miracle of Israel because great men and women have been willing to and have sacrificed their lives and continue to sacrifice their lives, putting those lives on the line. And that's why we are celebrating the Lone Soldier Project. The Lone Soldier Project is a tremendous project created by Ricky Meyer, one of our very own, and we're very proud of Ricky, who's founder of the Lone Soldier Project. And she's here today with former Lone Soldier Nati Yagudin, I'm sorry if I didn't say it right, and Idan Yanovici. Again, forgive me for butchering your name, but they are former Lone Soldier and executive director of the Lone Soldier Center in memory of Michael Levin. The Lone Soldier Project is an apolitical, nonpartisan organization that spreads awareness of the almost 6,000 young men and women from around the world who leave the comfort of their home to go to Eretz Yisrael and to fight for us, to defend our homeland. Right? It's hard enough to be a soldier in Israel, but to not have a support system, to not fully speak the language, fully be able to access it, I can only imagine is difficult to say the least. And it's not only for, by the way, expats and those who go to Israel to make Aliyah to serve in the IDF, it's also for Israelis who are orphaned, who don't have a support system. The Lone Soldier Project is a beautiful gesture of what it means to be B'nai Yisrael, to raise money for them, to send them resources. Out in the lobby, you'll see we have a box for books and for magazines. There are so many ways we can get involved. Talk to Ricky. Join in the conversation at 12:30 to see how you can help, how you can contribute. We're not being asked to serve in the IDF, right? We're not being asked to put our lives on the line. But at the very least, we can acknowledge those who do for us and have made this 2,000-year-old dream a reality, because without them, we would not have Eretz Yisrael. We would not have reclaimed our ancient Jewish homeland. And so ask Ricky and the others how you can get involved with the Lone Soldier Project. It makes me proud, and it really represents everything of what it means to be B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel, Achim and Achot together as one. And that's also why I'm so proud of today, right? We have our open house. Somebody said to me, so what do we do special for an open house? And I think Marla or somebody else said, nothing. We do nothing special, nothing different. Every Shabbat at Shirat Hayam is exactly as you experienced it today, right? All we do is put it in the newspaper that it's an open house, but every week is an open house. Every week here is an open heart and an open mind, and Jews and semi-Jews and non-Jews, everybody is welcome. Everybody is wanted here. It's one of the most important aspects of this congregation is that it was named very clearly and consciously, not Temple Shirat Hayam, not Synagogue Shirat Hayam, not Shul Shirat Hayam, but Congregation or Kihilat Shirat Hayam, right? Because it's about reclaiming this ancient value of not being an organization and not being an institution, but being a place for people to come together, to congregate, to be together, to be as one. And that's what I believe we've been doing for the past 7-8 years now, right? We have been focusing on that. And that's what radical hospitality is all about. It's not some new age or marketing slogan or gimmicky idea. It's at the essence. It's at the heart of our tradition. Again, we were a people before we were a religion. And that's why I always say to those here, which is kind of preaching to the choir, more importantly to those online, just come for lunch. Because for some people, that is the pathway in to this congregation, to being a part of something bigger than themselves. For some people, they want to daven, some want to do yoga, some want to study Torah, and some want to just come and schmooze and get to know other people in their community, and that is perfectly acceptable and righteous and holy from our perspective and in our tradition. And returning full circle back to the Boston bombing, right? I was also very, very proud to be a Jew because of Shirat Hayam and these values, but I was also very proud to be a Bostonian and part of this community after the Boston bombing, in the aftermath, because we saw great acts of achim and achot, of brotherhood and sisterhood, and achdut and oneness, of people coming together and taking care of each other. There are so many examples of beauty and blessings and light amidst darkness over the past 3 weeks. It is heartwarming to see good people rising up and taking care of one another. Yes, last week's conversation, there is evil in the world and there are evil people who want to do evil things, but there are far more good people than there are evil. And out of the ashes of the bombing, we have seen many acts of heroism and greatness and blessing and light, right? And that's what the message is, and that's what we need to end on with this conversation about the Boston bombing. I will not continue on. Next week, this is the end again of a 3-part series, but it's important to end on this note of blessing and this note of beauty, and to not give those who would have liked us to forget about those moments and think otherwise, not to give them the final say. And so, what should it have said on that Liberty Bell? On one side it should say, proclaim freedom, and all who live thereof. It should say that, and it is the right message on one side of the Liberty Bell, but the forefathers of this country would have been wise to look to the forefathers of our tradition, Judaism, and the Talmudic dictum that says, O chavruta, O mituta, right? Yes, give me liberty or give me death, but the Talmud also says, give me chavruta, give me friendship, give me fellowship, give me community, give me country, give me nation, give me peoplehood, or give me death, because freedom without brotherhood and sisterhood and responsibility is not fully freedom, and to be a brother and a sister, right, and a people and a community and a country that joins together, that unites together in the good times, and God willing will unite only in good times, but also comes together during the not so good times, during the sorrowful times. That's what it means to be truly free, and that's what we represent, I think, here at Shirat Hayam. That's what we've seen over the past few weeks, and that's my prayer for all of us, that we continue to fight for freedom and to preserve freedom, and to invite Elisa up here to sing freedom, and to also unite in brotherhood and sisterhood and create community. And that's what we'll continue to do.